So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first interactive workshop of the International Society of Anaesthetic Pharmacology. My name is Hugo Verreke. I'm an anesthesiologist at the General Hospital ISAP Sint-Jan in Brugge in Belgium. I'm also an assistant professor at the University Medical Center in Groningen. And I'm really happy and humbled and honored to co-host this workshop with Professor Stephen Schaefer from Stanford University and Stanford School of Medicine, Stanford University Medical Center. He's the mentor of my promoter of my thesis that introduced me into the exciting world of anesthetic pharmacology. So for me, this is really something that I can join him in this workshop, and I'm really looking forward of being corrected when I say stupid things on anesthetic pharmacology after all these years. This is the University Medical Center where I became an assistant professor, but my clinical application of all the techniques we are going to discuss is being done mainly in this hospital, where I really learned that the academic theoretical background was really useful to optimize my clinical practice, and I hope to convince you of that possibility also. Before we start, some conflicts of interest. There were several companies involved in advisory screen development for showing the effects of interactions in anesthetic pharmacology, EEG monitoring developers, analgesia monitoring production, and they all provided departmental research reports at some time during the past 10 years. Although I do not have a direct financial interest in the success of or the failure of the technology discussed, I do not have shares in the company either. Some technology is not FDA approved, and if so, then I will show or attempt to show you some alternative solutions in order to allow you to use the techniques at the bedside of the patient. For those of you who are still in training and have to pass the board exam for the American Board of Anesthesiology, this is the examination blueprint of all the topics in anesthetic pharmacology that you are expected to know in a sufficient degree of detail to pass the exam. And we will, the topics in red will certainly some way being mentioned in this workshop. Depends a bit of the questions we get and the discussions we have, but we are certainly going to talk about compartmental models in pharmacokinetics and dynamics. We will talk about elimination, termination of action, and the context-sensitive half-time. We will talk about a lot about interaction models and their derivatives. Although this is not a topic in the blueprint, I've added this myself. And that's because I really think that in the future this will be more and more important, especially if we are going to start using more sophisticated algorithms, for example, using big data and artificial intelligence. It might be a good input to know about interaction models. We will certainly talk about volatile agents, the pharmacokinetics and dynamics and the effects, about MAC, about opioids, about propofol, and we also will. But I want to stress that this should not be a fully theoretical course. The idea is to try to show you some possibilities to make it more clinically useful and to apply it in clinical practice. So the learning objectives of this workshop, in my opinion, are that when this workshop has been followed, you understand the background and the utility of the concept of effect site concentration, because that will be a crucial concept that improves the control over your magnitude and time course of drug effect. That's for single drug titration, but also I will take you into a typical case with the idea of describing the typical decision process that I encounter during induction, maintenance, and recovery of anesthesia, where the pharmacokinetic dynamic models provide me information that I use in clinical practice. I will certainly talk about the limitations of the fact that these models are population-derived models and they predict the average behavior in a population. There are some limitations with that, but I think this can be turned into our advantage also, and I hope to convince you of that a couple of minutes later. And finally, we will talk about some technical solutions that can help to bring this theoretical concept to the bedside of the patient and use it in daily practice. This is an interactive workshop, but due to the COVID pandemic, we really are encountered with new ways of having educational sessions, and the annual meeting is for the first time a virtual meeting. We don't have a polling software included in this in this workshop, but I would do an experiment with a short poll that we can do here using the reaction button that is found at the low side of your screen, where you can, if you see the reaction below, you can give a thumbs up signal or a thumb up signal, and I can see it in my participant list. How many of you are responding positively to the next question. And so now I see we have about 30 participants, and maybe as an experiment, let's give a first question. So the question is, are you a trainee or a resident in anesthesiology? If yes, give me a thumbs up. Now, I have two possibilities. Either there's no one that is a trainee or a resident, or you are not or we have we are talking to computers that are open and on this workshop, and nobody is behind the screen, or there are no trainees. So let's do a second attempt. Are you a board certified anesthesiologist that has clinical practice at this time? And now I count about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15 of the 75 are board certified anesthesiologists. Welcome everybody. Are you a certified registered nurse anesthetist, or somebody with a comparable independent recognition to provide anesthesia services? This is an international meeting, so there are several possibilities here. Okay, now I see the thumbs up for another, no thumbs up here. And then, are you an employee or representative of a medical company? This will be a good test because I know there are some of you. So I hope there are some response here. I do see some response, which is a very good thing, and I count about 18 people. I think this is because of the active participation of one of our major sponsors in this meeting today. And then finally, are you a researcher? Do you have advanced knowledge on anesthetic pharmacology, and are you involved in a research project with anesthetic pharmacology topics? And indeed, this is very good because you are the core target audience for this annual meeting. Although this workshop is also intended for novices, so don't be afraid to stay and stick around. I think we will make it clinically practical and interesting for you as a clinician. Now, for all those who are involved in clinical practice, do you believe that a good understanding of anesthetic pharmacology will improve your clinical skills? And now I count about 35. Yes, okay, great, great. Okay, thank you for this response. So we are now going through a couple of slides explaining you the basics of anesthetic pharmacology models and pharmacokinetic dynamic models. And we will try to explain to you the concept of effect site concentration and how this can be a tool to optimize your clinical practice. For that part, I will leave the stage to Steve Schaefer, who is much more experienced in lecturing on this, and also as he is a native English-speaking person, he can improvise much better than I do. And I doesn't probably will make less mistakes than I do. So, Steve, the floor is yours. Thank you for letting me giving this introduction, and I'm looking forward to your explanation. Just one practical thing, if you have a question, use the chat box. We will try to keep an eye on it, and then we can have a live discussion. For bandwidth issues, please close down your video during, if you are not into a conversation, but when you start conversating with us, you can add your video. That makes it much more nice for everybody involved. Okay, thank you. And Steve, the floor is yours.